Good afternoon. Very warm welcome to all fellow aviators, ForeFlight users, and fellow Canadian pilots. Today's webinar will be focusing on how to get the most out of your ForeFlight subscription, specifically for Canadian pilots, and just some subscription reviews and highlights of some what I feel are some of our best features, specifically for any pilots flying in Canada or transborder. My name is Dominik. I am a ForeFlight Pilot Support Team member here at ForeFlight. I have had the pleasure of being part of the team for over 8 years now, and we're here to educate and answer any questions you may have. One of the ways we do that is through these webinars and presentations, and hopefully you get something out of this session. So we will have a Q&A portion at the end, which we'll get to, and we will also be able to answer some questions during the presentation. Before we begin, we ask that you ask those questions via the GoToWebinar message panel. If you have one, we'll respond to some during the presentation, and as mentioned, many others at the Q&A portion at the end. If you do have any audio problems, we recommend joining from a computer, not a mobile device. And this session is being recorded, as all our webinars are, and it will be available and accessible at foreflight.com/webinars after the session. So for today's topics, we're going to review some helpful subscription advisor applications that we have in ForeFlight and on our website. We're going to go through each subscription type and see what's available depending on what your flying type is, and highlighting and reviewing some of our best features. So what subscription suits your flying? That's really the question. ForeFlight offers really wide range of different capabilities, but as a VFR pilot in Canada flying on the weekends, you may not necessarily take advantage of a lot of that stuff. So why should you have to pay for it? And that's really what this webinar is about, is diving into each subscription and seeing which one best suits your flying, and what features of other subscription tiers would benefit your flying. Just to break it down, we have 3 subscription types: Basic Plus, Pro Plus, and Performance Plus. And I should say 3 subscription tiers. And they're billed annually, but if you break it down, it's about $13, $26, or $39 a month. And more information on the details of those is available on our website as well, foreflight.com/pricing. If you do go on the website, you'll also find a buying guide. And the buying guide is really helpful because it really dives in and breaks down the individual subscription plans, what type of plans you have, and how to select your regions and any add-ons you can add to your subscription as well. So basically, when you choose a subscription tier, you then have one region associated with that subscription. Now, as if you're a Canadian pilot, you're going to select the Canadian region, but if you fly to the States very often, you'll have to also select the US region. And then if you are maybe an IFR pilot, or you like Jepson charts, you can add those as well. If you fly more sophisticated aircraft and you want things like runway analysis, that, integrated obstacles and takeoff and landing performances, that's something you can add on as well. Our team at ForeFlight has recently developed something called the Subscription Advisor. It's available on our website, foreflight.com/subscription advisor. And what it essentially is just a guide or a quiz that you take that provides feedback on what type of subscription you should be subscribed to based on the answers you provide. And it goes something like this. You take the quiz and it asks you questions like, how often do you fly? So I might only fly, let's say, several times a month. So a few times a month, I'll select that. I live in British Columbia, for example, so I'm going to select mountainous terrain. You can select what type of aircraft you typically fly. If you're a renter but you're a multi-engine licensed pilot, you might select multi-engine twin. Which weather conditions are you concerned with when flying? Do you fly in the winter? I know a lot of pilots don't necessarily fly in the winter. They're more of a summer renter, so you would just select previous or next question. Or thunderstorms, for example, for summer flying. And if you fly throughout all seasons, then wind, ice, turbulence, fog, all that stuff also applies. So you select those. What type of flying do you do? IFR only, VFR, or both? And finally, how far do you go, right? Do you stay within the local area, practice areas, or do you go more than 50 nautical miles away from your home airport? Based on all those answers that I provided, the subscription advisor is recommending that I get our middle tier subscription plan, and it'd just be useful for all your pre-flight and in-flight needs. So the main reason it gave me Pro Plus here is I selected terrain. And with Pro Plus, you get very, very advanced hazard awareness features and the ability to georeference your plates on the map. So you don't have to go away from the maps page, distract yourself with that while flying in terrain. You can just stay directly on the maps page and overlay all those airport diagrams without having to go to the plates page. So again, and some more advanced layers of forecasting layers as well. So it's just recommending that based on the answers that you provided. So again, this is a very helpful feature. This came out not too long ago, and I think it'll really provide some insight on what type of subscription best suits your needs. Again, based on the flying that you do. I'd also like to highlight our recent release of ForeFlight 15.9, which is now available in the Apple App Store. It includes some really great features and a new beta radar layer that we're trying out. Some more details on that is again available on ForeFlight.com. But basically, there's a couple I want to highlight here. So the new beta radar layer is something our team has been working on very rigorously over the past couple months. Basically, it provides a very much less pixelated and more timely radar return. And you get the same kind of tops information on the radar layer as well as the vectors on where those cells are going. Another feature is the map, or an upgrade I should say, is the map annotation eraser. It used to be that you could only erase your last annotation instead of having the erase feature, but now there's an actual eraser, which is very, very useful, and I know something a lot of users have been asking for. Logbook filtering is now available in a ForeFlight logbook, so you can actually filter your entries by date range, aircraft, flight, people, or any other add-ons that you attach to your flight. The profile line pointer, which is in our Pro Plus subscriptions and above, you can now tap and drag your finger to highlight hazards along your route and obstacles in airspace, and you'll actually see that directly on the maps page below as well. Another neat feature, again, to declutter the aeronautical map layer is something called the Hide Airspace Activated by NOTAM feature. This is available in our settings menu on the maps page. And basically, it's just yet another way to customize what you see on that aeronautical map layer to declutter it. So there's been a lot of talk about, I see all this airspace on my aeronautical maps, but when I tap on it, it says only activated by NOTAM. And I don't know if it's active or not. I want a way to get rid of that. So we introduced this feature here where you can turn off all the airspace that you see on the aeronautical map layer based on if there's an activating NOTAM applying to it at the moment. If there's not, it'll disappear, and if it is, then it'll appear. This is in addition to the auto highlighting of airspace and hiding airspace above a certain altitude. So again, 3 ways to kind of filter your airspace on the aeronautical layer, and this is just another addition to that. Finally, for the Performance Plus tiers, we have an addition of missed approach climb gradient requirements, and it'll actually give you the appropriate climb gradient, or you can select the missed approach option there and specify a minimum climb gradient for a specific weight. So that's just another addition to the runway analysis for aircraft and airplanes that require that kind of specification. Now, let's dive right into a Basic Plus subscription and above. So what do you get with a Basic Plus subscription? And specifically, what features benefit Canadian pilots? So, some things to highlight. With the Basic Plus subscription, you get the ForeFlight Aeronautical layer. In that layer, you have the option to select VFR checkpoints. So what does this do? Well, instead of displaying a VNC or a VTA when flying in congested airspace, you can rely on the aeronautical layer as a declutter mode to kind of show you those checkpoints as well. So here's what it looks like with a VTA underlaid. And you can see those VFR checkpoints like the beaches, Bluffers Park in Toronto, are all on now digitally on the aeronautical layer. Controlled airspace alerts, also very helpful. Let's say you are flying in busy Class C airspace or approaching busy Class C airspace. You will get a notification that you are in fact entering that type of airspace and what altitudes that airspace constraints are. You can zoom out and tap on directly on the airspace, and you can hide those notifications. So really, there should be no excuse to get into airspace that you're not supposed to be in. It will even give you an alert when you enter that airspace and when you exit it. Essentially, what this provides is a very wide or a greater sense of situational awareness, right? If you have a passenger distracting you during a flight, you may not notice that you've entered some type of airspace you weren't supposed to, and ForeFlight just has your back there. So it's an alert that is enabled through the settings menu in ForeFlight, on the maps page, I should say, and the alerts there can be managed to your preference. So you can set an alert range when you want to receive that alert, altitude buffers, what types of alerts you want to set, and that's all in the alerts menu. Another great feature is graphical NOTAMs. So we all know there's usually a long list of NOTAMs for an airport or an FIR, and it's hard to decipher just by looking at lats and longs where the boundaries of those NOTAMs are. So what ForeFlight does is take those boundaries and display it graphically on the maps page. This is especially useful for fire season, I find, in Canada. Although it won't indicate where exactly those fires are, it'll indicate any firefighting activity in that area. So again, as always, check all the NOTAMs applicable to the airport and route of flight. But this kind of gives you a warning and a heads up that, hey, something's going on in that area, so maybe I should look a little further into it. Graphical NOTAMs are available on all Basic Plus subscriptions, and you simply select the layer on the maps page. Another very, very useful feature I find for pilots flying into or requiring longer field lengths in Canada. For example, if you don't want to see airports that have less than 3,000 or 4,000 foot runways based on the performance of your aircraft, you can now filter that on the maps page on the aeronautical layer as well. So if you go to the little gear icon, the menu settings on the maps page, under airports, you'll see airport filters, and you can set a minimum runway length. So if you set 3,000 feet, it will only show you airports that have a 3,000 foot runway or more. And you can select more than that. The limit is 3,000, and then it'll just show you all the other airports that have shorter runways as well. All right, why don't we dive right into this aeronautical layer? The aeronautical layer in ForeFlight is data-driven, and it's an absolutely indispensable tool for all pilots, and especially for Canadian pilots, because once you get into more flying, right, more congested airspace, it's really a great way to filter out what you want to see and what you don't want to see. So let's take a look at this example here. This is a flight from Geraldton, Ontario to Winnipeg, which is a decent cross country. Right now I just have a regular VNC overlaid, but using the drop down menu, I can obviously take that away and I'd be left with nothing, or I can select aeronautical and we start seeing airspace and more data being populated. Now, the great thing about the aeronautical layer is that you take this congested airspace around Winnipeg, for example, And you can really filter out and customize what you see. Where with a paper map, you can't really do that, right? So the settings menu will be your best friend with regards to the aeronautical layer, because here you have an aeronautical section and you can turn things off, like place labels, which is just the names of the major areas around cities. You can turn on and off cultural elements, for example, major roads, small roads, railroads, urban areas, labeling of national parks and forests. You can customize the airports that you see, so heliports, private airports. If you're not flying to seaplane bases and you don't want to see them, you can turn them off. Here's where you can access that airport filter, the minimum runway length that we were talking about earlier. Private fields, like I mentioned before. So unlike a paper chart where you just kind of see all that information at once, here it really gives you the ability to only see what you want, which I really like. The same is true for airspace. So if you want to see auto-highlighted airspace for the airspace that you're transiting, you can. You can hide airspace about a certain altitude. You can only see, maybe you want to turn off controlled airspace. Maybe you want to turn on mode C airspace. Anything in that list you can toggle on and off, which is great. Also in that list there, in the airspace column, you can turn off what's called worldwide altitudes. And if you're a Canadian pilot, you'll want that turned on, most likely, because that will show you the heights of and types of airspace that those rings represent. Airways and waypoints, you can, if you're an IFR or VFR pilot, you can turn off waypoints and airways altogether. VFR intercall details, that's where you get those VFR checkpoints. And something you can't do in a paper chart, you can actually increase the text size, which is great for if you're using an iPad mini, for example. Quick filters. Quick filters is your bar here on the left-hand side of your maps page. So if you turn that bar on, that's just your really quick, the ability to really quickly layer your aeronautical layer without having to go into the settings. So I can turn everything on, airports, airspace, airways, VORs, terrain, all by using the clicks of the button there, which is fantastic. And you also get that little pencil, which is your annotation feature. And you can annotate the map, the aeronautical map, directly on the maps page. And you can do neat things like plan your entry into the circuit, for example. Or if you're showing someone how you plan to fly on approach or enter the circuit like a student, that's a really great way to do it. You can clear those annotations, and now with a new feature, you can actually just erase certain parts of it without having to clear it completely. Another great feature of the aeronautical layer is that you can select the map theme. So you can go from a classic, from a light theme like it was before to a more classic looking theme, and right down to, I tend to personally fly in the dark theme. I find that most conducive to my flying, and it's still very legible. I do a lot of night flying, so at night it's perfect. Now, as great as the aeronautical layer is, there are some things that it won't show you, such as the legends that you're used to on just Nav Canada content. So this is just a feature highlight I'd like to bring to your attention. ForeFlight has something called the Map Touch Action setting, and what it does is give you the ability to view the legends of the actual charts. And we'll also talk about some Nav Canada content that's available in ForeFlight. So using the settings menu, you can tap something called Map Touch Action, and you get three options there. One's called No Action, Bring Chart to Front, and Bring Chart to Front with Legends. So the No Action is the default setting. What it does is basically stitch all the VNC and VTA charts together. And when you zoom in on a particular area, it'll switch to a VNC and VTA if it's available. And it does the best possible job it can to stitch those charts seamlessly together. And that's what you see, kind of a Canada-wide VNC map. But if you want to see a specific edition of a Nav Canada chart, or if you want just to look at the legend itself, you can access this setting and tap Bring Chart to Front with Legends. And what that would do would just, and you tap directly on that area, you would get the actual VFR chart as if it were laid out on a table in front of you. So you can take a look at the addition information, the validity dates, and the actual legends itself. Now, there's another way to get to view Nav Canada Legends, and that's in the Documents tab. So if you tap the Documents tab and you go into Drives, you'll see that there's a Nav Canada section. And in that Nav Canada section, there is a option to select legends. And in those legends, you'll see many things, but one of which is the VFR legend chart that we just took a look at. And another section of the Nav Canada drive there would be the Flight Information Center, RCOs. You can see that there's a lot of available published content by Nav Canada here, CapGens, water aerodrome supplements if you need it, other taxi chart legends, ILS plan views, things like that. This is the Flight Information Center RCO map. I find this very helpful. I fly across Canada, so it's always nice to know where what FIC I should be reporting to or calling. It gives you a detailed map of the frequencies that are available in those areas and what FIC you should be contacting. So I find this very useful. I encourage every Canadian pilot to take a look at that Nav Canada drive that we have available. We keep updated with all the most current content, and take a look at all the documents that are available to you there. Not least of which is the AIM, the Aeronautical Information Manual, and the CFS. The full CFS is also in that drive. All right. Now, moving on to something that pilots love, checklists. Who doesn't love a good checklist? ForeFlight Checklist integrates probably one of the most important aviation tools that any pilot has directly into the app. And you can use it for every stage of flight. It's simple, it's very intuitive, and it just fits kind of naturally into the workflow. So it helps you conduct safer flights at the end of the day. What I particularly like about the checklist feature in ForeFlight is how customizable it is, how you can choose for it to be verbal and speak you the checklist, and also all the templates that it provides for things like even setting up your electronic flight bag. In this example here, we have a SR22 checklist, and I'm adding another item into it, something that I personally do, which is an oil heater checklist, or checking the oil heater, I should say. Something that wasn't included in the template, but I can always add it in because that's part of my flow, right? Or you can take things off. That's your discretion as well. What it also does is provide normal, abnormal, and emergency checklists. So it's, again, a very easy way to take advantage of this, and a very easy way to make sure no step is left unchecked. And you can check your way through the checklist as it's very smartly organized, and it has a nice visual interactive feedback as well. In this example here, I'm going to add a checklist, a template, and I'm going to go right down to the bottom and add myself a EFB checklist. So this is making sure that our electronic flight bag, which is our iPads, are ready to go and available for our flight. Things you want to consider: charging, data, flight planning, final actions, making sure all the data is downloaded, you have a backup device, your ForeFlight version is up to date, and everything you need for your flight is ready to go before you go. Really, just what I like to use a checklist for is it really reduces the amount of time you spend heads down during your flight, especially if you have your iPad mounted in a nice line of sight kind of place. It's it's really helpful in that way where you don't have to pull out a checklist and go right heads down. It's in particular if you're flying IMC. All right, the next feature I want to highlight here is ForeFlight's Glide Advisor. Available in our Basic Plus subscription, it provides a fantastic situational awareness feature for pilots that are flying in high terrain areas, or even if you're not and you just want to know how far the airplane can glide by visually looking at a map instead of just outside. Now, obviously in a real emergency, you're going to focus on flying the aircraft first, but if I'm flying a route from Penticton, for example, to Kelowna, I'm not too familiar with the area. I know it's a valley. I know, there's minimal options, but check out what ForeFlight can do. So I've inputted my, this case is a 182 glide speed and ratio into the Glide Advisor, and I get that right from the POH. If you do have trouble finding exactly the best glide speed and glide ratio, we can help with that. If you just email team@foreflight.com, we will be happy to help out. We have a lot of ratios that we can send your way. There's also a guide on how to do it on our ForeFlight Pilot Guide. The really cool thing about this is that it adapts depending on your altitude and winds. So if you have a very strong headwind, it will reduce that glide distance ahead of you. And it uses the upper winds that are either packed for the flight or are live from the internet, depending on where you are, and what sources you're using. All right, and distance rings. Distance rings is also a very useful feature, especially when flying long distances, or in combination with that Glide Advisor. I use that very often as well. What you can do with distance rings, pretty straightforward. I mean, it provides distances around your aircraft, but not many people know that you can actually customize what you see, what kind of distance rings you see, whether it's in nautical miles, in time, in different distance settings. So if you go to the More tab in Settings and you scroll down to Own Ship Distance Ring Style, here you can select how many or what the distance values are. So if you select automatic kilometers, once you zoom in and zoom out of your own ship icon there, that'll actually automatically adjust. Most people prefer nautical miles, but you can also do time. Time is very interesting too. If you're thinking about ETAs, this is particularly helpful when you're entering a Class D control zone, for example, or a radio controlled airport, and you want to give them ETAs on your time to landing or your time to enter the zone or start the approach. I find it very useful to put up the distance rings in minutes so I can give an accurate ETA. Procedure Advisor is a fantastic tool available in your subscription. And it's not just for IFR pilots. So that's something I want to highlight here. This is a flight from Sudbury, and the usual workflow that I do is I'll plan a flight, departure destination, and I'll tap the Procedure Advisor right away. If I'm doing an IFR flight, for example, I can select the departure directly on Procedure Advisor, and it'll actually display the departure directly on the maps page if it's geo-referenced capable. This is a subscription that has a Jepson subscription attached to it as well, Jepson chart subscription. So that's why I'm seeing Jep charts. I've selected the runway for departure there as well, and what that'll do is give me a trajectory off that runway, which is helpful if I'm maintaining a runway heading. The Route Advisor, if I tap Routes, will give me this is an IFR flight in this case. It will give me airways that fly from that go from their departure to destination. It will give me recently ATC cleared routes for that route. And it'll also give me just recommended routing, depending on what ForeFlight determines is the best possible routing for that pairing. I'm going to choose something very simple here because I'm flying a non-pressurized IFR capable aircraft. And I'm just going to choose one point there. And now we're going to go right into the arrivals. So I'm choosing arrival runway 25 in Thunder Bay from what I think I will be cleared. And just by doing a simple procedure advisor, you're kind of able to go right from a departure, arrival to approach, all just using that advisor instead of having to manually input all that information in the edits tab in the flight plan. The procedure advisor does that for us. It'll go right down to the approach, and you can actually set minima for your approach, whether depending on what category of aircraft you're flying, whether you're going down LPV or LNAV mins or custom mins. Maybe your operator, your company wants you to add 50 feet to all your minimums for safety reasons. That's something you would actually be able to input and customize in there, and it's displayed directly on the aeronautical layer. We can go right down to holding patterns, which is very useful for training flights. You can input holding patterns on fixes, or you can customize holding patterns on any other fix. If there's a published holding pattern, you can input that as well, which is fantastic. Something very useful, and you can edit that with times, distances, and here's an example on the IAF CANEV inputting a hold there, and that's something very common, right, in the IFR world, to get a hold on the IF, waiting for traffic to clear or what have you. And that you'll see that displayed directly in the flight plan edit screen, where you can edit that even further. If you want 5-minute legs, you can input 5-minute legs, and so on and so forth. So this was an IFR example, very, very useful. We'll get into a VFR example here in a second, but that's just one way Procedure Advisor really helps you out with your planning, and I use it all the time, and it's a fantastic feature. So that was the IFR world, and as much as the Procedure Advisor helps all IFR pilots, it's equally as useful for any VFR flights, and let me show you how. This is the same kind of flight to Thunder Bay, but now we are just doing some airport hopping. And what I'm going to do is select Procedure Advisor again and tap Traffic Pattern. In Traffic Pattern, you have the ability to select the most favorable runway depending on the winds, and it will grab the most recent weather information for that. And then you can select how you're going to enter the traffic pattern and what altitude. So you can select a custom pattern altitude, or it'll just default to 1,000 feet above ground. And you can select how you plan to join, whether it's a teardrop, whether it's a midfield, or whether it's straight in. You can add that to your route. And what you get is a nice visual example and situational awareness of how the traffic pattern looks. If you're unfamiliar with Thunder Bay, you've never been there, you kind of want to see where you're going to be overflying and what's around that. It's a fantastic way to train new pilots. It's a fantastic way to visualize how you're going to do something the night before a flight. And I truly love this feature because it gives you a nice preview of how exactly you plan to fly that traffic pattern that day. Great feature for our VFR flyers. Weight and balance. We all know how important weight and balance is for aviation, for general aviation, and for your single-engine private aircraft. Even though you may not do it every time, it is so easy in ForeFlight to have that weight and balance information available. And if you're taking extra passengers, extra cargo, it's a really simple and easy way, once you have the weight and balance profile set up, to make those quick adjustments and see if you're still within your envelope. Let's take a look at an example. So in this case, we are doing a route, or flying a route from Yankee Bravo Lima to Yankee Alpha Zulu, and we are going to do a quick weight and balance for our passengers. So weight and balance is available in the weight and balance tab. and also through the Flights tab. What we're doing here is loading our passenger weights in. We can also circumvent that and turn on standard weights for passengers. We're adding some baggage and cargo. And once we're all done all that, we can hit summary at the top right-hand corner. And what you get is a beautiful kind of load sheet summary that you can save, add to your files, and have as a reference for your flight. Now, I do want to mention that we didn't get too detailed into weight and balance for this presentation, but we do have many weight and balance webinars available on our webinars webpage. I just wanted to highlight that it's there, and it's a fantastic little additional feature. It's included in all Basic Plus subscriptions. All you have to do is access it through the weight and balance page and make sure your aircraft profile is set up properly. That's the hardest part. Once your aircraft's profile and your envelope looks right, then it's just a matter of inputting weights and generating summaries that you can look at and reference whenever you'd like. Finally, but not least, we are going to take a look at a lot of settings available to ForeFlight users that may not necessarily be widely known. And we're going to start off by accessing those settings through the quick settings menu on the maps page. As mentioned before, you can toggle the base map layer. We did take a look at this before, the classic light and dark. I prefer dark personally. But in this case, in example, we're going to stick with light just to showcase the light features and shaded terrain and color terrain options that you have. You can also access things like peaks, passes, and cables. This is just a continuation of that aeronautical customization. A relatively new feature is the day and night layer, where you can select where the sun is relative to your position, and you can see where the nighttime is and the daytime is in the globe. But once you zoom in closer to your aircraft, it kind of gets rid of that, or else the screen would be a little too dark to read. A variety of other settings, like adjusting the size of texts. And if you scroll down further, you can really dive into the customization of map overlays. So getting those distance rings, turning on that glide advisor, track vectors, breadcrumbs, these are all accessible through the settings menu on the maps page. Now, something to point out, the settings menu on the maps page is not the full settings menu. If you want to access even more settings, we're going to go to the More tab. But this is just a convenient way to access mostly the aeronautical side of things and what you can declutter and clutter on your map, as well as alerts. Yeah, so if you turn on audio alerts, it will be very evident that you've turned them on, and you can customize what alerts that you have on and what you see on the maps page and what's spoken to you. You can also take a look at connected devices. So if you have a Sentry or a SXAR1 connected, you can take a look at what alerts and settings are available to you there. Here we go. So here we are going to go into the More tab, and that's where you can access the main ForeFlight settings menu, and that's available in the top right-hand corner. I also want to mention that you can rearrange the tabs that you have on ForeFlight. So you know that the bottom bar there that's always displayed. If you access logbook the most and you want that first, you can actually tap edit tab order and rearrange and customize how those menus are presented to you. So in this case, we had airports first, but now we have logbook and track log first. So not many people see that little option there, but it is available to you. We are now in the main settings menu, and this is where you can really take a look at settings as far as traffic, your download settings, whether you enable auto check on your pack, preferences as far as units and time, whether you want your device to sleep or not. Again, standard weights to kind of speed up your weight and balance process. The options are almost endless, but I want to reiterate, I strongly recommend just sitting down one day, going through your settings on ForeFlight and making sure everything's set to where you want it to be. Once it is, it's pretty straightforward to make minor adjustments, but it really will improve your workflow in the actual airplane. Having to look for a setting in the air is not exactly ideal. So again, recommend just sitting down one day and if you have some time and taking a look at all the settings that are available to you. All right. I'd like to highlight that we have reintroduced ForeFlight on Apple Watch. So this is a fantastic little convenience thing, and just being able to glance at a wide range of information just without even touching your phone is fantastic. It really just makes it easy to quickly check essential information. So things like takes your current location, destination, or anywhere, and displays your local weather. Airports, it has an airports view. It can be integrated into the watch face itself. And really it's just one tap access. So weather information where you need it, and that's its main purpose. It's a really user-friendly platform now on the Apple Watch, which I really appreciate. There are some requirements. You have to have ForeFlight version 15.7 or higher, and Watch OS version 9.4 and higher. Once you have those two, you'll be able to view the ForeFlight app on your Apple Watch and take advantage of all the things it has to offer. Now, what I like about this as well is our team really put a lot of effort into design and UI, and you can access things like NOTAMs and frequencies as well, which is fantastic, not just weather. So if you do have an Apple Watch, I encourage you to just spend some time taking a look at it. It's really a great addition to the whole network and the whole platform of ForeFlight. And that is a very nice segue into another fantastic tool and integration into the ForeFlight envelope is CloudAhoy. CloudAhoy is a fantastic debriefing tool. Whether you want to do it for yourself or for a fellow pilot or a student, CloudAhoy is now a ForeFlight company. We are offering a free 35-day trial. All you have to do is download the app, and it is a separate app from ForeFlight. But once you do that, you can start sending your track logs directly from ForeFlight to CloudAhoy. And it really does provide unparalleled debriefing and analytics as far as taking a look at your flights and all your data that is recorded. Really brings a technology to post-flight debriefs that ForeFlight didn't have before. Provides immense value for flight training and just makes you a better pilot. If you're really into the technical side of flying, it's a fantastic tool. I personally have used CloudAhoy before even ForeFlight. I'm very happy that this is now a part of the ForeFlight team. So if you want to take advantage of your subscription, I highly recommend at least signing up for the trial. See what it's all about. And when you combine ForeFlight, like a Sentry receiver or something that provides detailed analytics with CloudAhoy, it's a fantastic recording tool. Speaking of the ForeFlight ecosystem, ForeFlight on the web. It's available with every subscription, and what better way to do some pre-flight planning than on a nice big desktop screen, right? ForeFlight's powerful flight planning capabilities right from your web browser, any web browser really. You can plan, file, and brief, and then transition directly to your mobile device without, skipping a beat. Your planning activities on ForeFlight Web are automatically synced across your devices, so whatever's signed into your account, and it's available to all ForeFlight customers. So let's say you create a flight plan on your web browser, it automatically syncs to your iPhone or iPad. Then once you're in your cockpit, your flight deck, you can connect ForeFlight to a panel-mounted avionics, for example, and send that information over there. So it's pretty incredible that you can start off on a web browser and it transfers over to your avionics panel, right? And we'll get into what some of the Garmin integrations and avionics panel integrations are with ForeFlight later on. But what our team is really trying to do is kind of synergize that whole process, right? From your desktop to your mobile device, you're on your way to the airport, and then right into your panel. And that concludes kind of the basic plus highlights that I wanted to mention. And now we're going to kind of transition to features available in higher subscription plans. So for those pilots that want a little more advanced, weather features or layers or terrain or situational awareness, right into just some really just cool things like 3D airports in your performance plans. We're going to take a look at that now. So the Pro plans, again, add safety, enhanced situational awareness. Probably if you're an IFR pilot, I would recommend the Pro Plus plan. Just for that, just for the ability to overlay approach plates and things like that. And then performance, if you have any type of semi high performance aircraft where you need takeoff and landing distances, or you're flying great distances, performance plans is where I would definitely recommend landing. So first, let's take a look at Pro plans. What do you get as a Pro Plus subscriber? As a Canadian pilot, well, you get Pro weather features, weather layers. And this includes something called, not something called, I'm sure you're all aware of the service analysis, right? Issued by Nav Canada. It is available directly on the maps page. So if we select the service analysis layer in Pro Plus, you actually get that imagery that you would get on the service analysis layer generated by Nav Canada directly on the maps page. And you can play it, which is a fantastic way to view what systems are in high or low pressure systems, all those ISO lines, where they're moving and how the weather is going to change over the next 12, 18, 24 hours. And just as a comparison, you can go to the imagery, and that high and low pressure system is exactly what we saw on the maps page, right? So if you're ever in doubt, you can take a look at the actual imagery available on the imagery tab that's available from Nav Canada. But what I like to do is just to display that on the maps page directly. And for my weather briefings, I like to go big picture to small picture, right? So the surface analysis is something I throw up there right away. And then I'd get into more micro weather analysis. Another couple of Pro weather layers that I'd like to highlight. Again, if you go to the drop-down menu on the maps page, icing. You'll see you have icing US, icing global. As a Canadian pilot, I recommend selecting icing global, as it'll give you all of Canada. And here, once we select the icing layer, we have a slider on the right-hand side where we can adjust our altitude. We have a legend at the bottom indicating the severity of the icing that we might experience. And keep in mind, these are forecast layers, right? So this is what the weather engine is predicting for icing in those areas during those times. So it's not this is what's happening now layer. It is what is forecast and what is forecast in the future. The same goes for turbulence. So I have selected the turbulence layer now, and we can slide according to our altitude, and we can play what the turbulence forecasts are up to 18 hours in advance. The final layer I'd like to highlight here is the clouds. So we have forecast clouds now available in ForeFlight Pro Plus. And again, the coverage varies, but on this route of flight, we definitely expect some cloud layer if we departed right now between Muskoka and Sudbury, right? And possibly later on prior to Thunder Bay. The radar layer is available, and now with the 15.9 release will be radar beta as well, which is a less pixelated view of the radar layer, something for you to try out. But those layers are included, obviously, in the Pro Plus plans as well. Another fantastic thing available in the Pro Plus plans is synthetic vision. For those of you who haven't seen it, synthetic vision provides a fantastic hazard awareness capability for both iPad and iPhone now. It is available on iPhones. And it uses Jeppson's global high-resolution terrain and obstacle data, for which they basically is designed for certified panel avionics, and integrates it into ForeFlight. It looks fantastic. We see detailed 3D terrain, obstacles, runways in full screen or portrait or landscape mode or half screen, whatever you'd like. The fantastic thing about this is if you pair it with a AHRS capable receiver, like a Sentry or compatible Garmin equipment, you can actually see your pitch and roll information as well. So it acts as a dynamic backup as far as attitude. And if you're having a rainy day and your avionics fail you in your airplane, we've heard stories of pilots relying on this, and it's saving the day. So it is a fantastic tool. It's obviously not a certified AHRS or by any means or anything like that, but it's a tool that you can use to enhance safety in the flight deck and the cockpit. You can, if you don't have AHRS, obviously you'll just get the GPS derived ground speed, altitude, and vertical speeds, along with like an HSI display course deviator. Now for Canadian pilots, this is not necessarily applicable, but if you do have an ADS-B and you fly into places like the United States, it actually integrates moving targets, ADS-B targets, right into synthetic vision, so you don't have to go to the maps page, which is fantastic. You can see plates side by side, and it's elegantly transitions from day to night. So to preserve your night vision, the ForeFlight's developed a day mode to night mode transition, and it's a gradual transition, so it's not like it goes right to night mode. But yeah, you see everything to the terrain dimming to the stars coming out. It's really visually fantastic to look at, and when you are ready to land, it gives you realistic runways. It's really a fantastic tool. And that is a great segue to Hazard Visor. So if you notice the terrain awareness theme here you've got going on with Pro Plus, if I flew a lot in British Columbia, Pro Plus would be a no-brainer for me. The Hazard Visor is a fantastic tool. Essentially, it's just an in-flight map overlay, right? That depicts terrain and obstacles nearby relative to your selected altitude. And the terrain and obstacles are colored red and yellow based on the settings that you have and the altitude that you're flying with. It's adjustable using the right-hand scale, as I just demonstrated here. You also see a profile corridor, so the activation of that corridor can be automatic, or you can hide it in general. You can adjust the corridor width, and basically what the corridor will give you is your highest elevation figure along your route of flight based on your corridor width, as well as the highest obstacle along that corridor. So here we're doing a flight. There you go. And you also have those hazard alerts alerting you of any terrain ahead. And as I was saying, it also gives you your highest obstacle along your route. So here we're doing a flight in the mountains. We are getting way too close to
Terrain ahead.
a terrain ahead. It will give you those alerts. We can combine that with the synthetic vision that we just talked about, and I mean it's fantastic. You can't go wrong by having hazard advisors selected. It goes one step further than that. In profile view, you can also have that hazard advisor turned on, and in profile view, it looks something like this. It'll give you your highest point along your route, your selected route corridor, what you're going to clear those obstacles or terrain by, or if you're not going to clear it, how much you need to go, and when your first strike is. So, maybe you're starting off at a certain altitude, but your plan is to climb higher or circumvent that by the terrain by flying in a valley or going somewhere else. It'll make sure that whatever route you have in there is going to clear the terrain. Georeference of plates and airport diagrams, only available in Pro plans and above. It will give you the ability to directly georeference a approach plate on the map, or whether it be an approach plate or an airport diagram. It saves you from having to go into the plates page and looking at the chart there and having to go back and forth. I think this is very useful, especially if you're focusing on a hard IMC approach. You don't have to, go switch one back and forth. Pretty straightforward. It's the feature that's only available in Pro Plus subscribers. Again, tailored more for IFR pilots. Per leg altitude in profile view. So you'll actually be able to see different altitudes displayed on your profile view. And if you're planning on climbing higher or lower at certain altitudes to clear terrain, you'll actually see that displayed in the altitude sections in the profile view, which is a fantastic way to view it. And last but not least, certainly not least, because the amount of information and features that performance plans, which is the highest tier plan, provide you is fantastic. And we're going to see that value here. So we'll just highlight a few features, but one of which is dynamic winds. Dynamic winds is a global layer, and it forecasts wind speeds and direction and temperatures at multiple altitudes. It's a stunning layer. I'll just animate it here. It displays both winds in temperature and winds in speed layers. So it's a very colorful map that covers the whole globe. You can select those layers through the drop-down menu. And overlaid on each layer, it's there's a time slider as well, so you can forecast winds into the future, basically into 24-hour period up to like 63,000 feet, which is fantastic. Not that many of us are flying in those those altitudes, but anyways, it's a much easier way to view upper winds than just looking at the standard kind of view. There is whether you're looking at temperature or speeds, there is a legend displayed, and it is a layer that is packed. So if you pack for your flight, the dynamic winds are also downloaded for that route of flight, and you can display them when you're in the air, which is fantastic. Icing, turbulence, clouds in profile view. So if you remember back to the Pro Plus subscription, where you were able to view icing, turbulence, and clouds on the maps layer, performance plans take it one step further, and they do so by integrating all those forecast layers into your profile view. So if you go to flight plan, the FPL button and the top, this is just demonstrating how you would view on the maps page. But we're going to go into the turbulence global, and finally the cloud layer as well. And this is just demonstrating how we can see all those layers on the maps page. Performance plans take it one step further. So if we go to our profile view, we see that we have a drop-down menu on the bottom left-hand corner. And there is where you can select icing, turbulence, and cloud layers. So this really gives you that vertical cross-section that is really helpful when it comes to layers, right? Because that 2D view, top-down view of the layers on the maps page is not necessarily too helpful. But if we have the Performance Plus plan, we can view it in a vertical cross-section, so I know exactly visually when I'm going to hit that forecast layer of cloud, right? Or icing or turbulence or what have you. It's a very, very cool and neat feature, one I use very frequently. Next is 3D airports and routes. So I know this is an exciting feature for a lot of people because it gives you the ability to see a full 360-degree perspective of your route of flight and the environment around your airports and the terrain and route that you're flying with. So here I just threw in a demonstrate an example, very long cross country across the majority of Canada, highlighting different terrain and different airport types. And what I'm able to do is select through my route there and view all those locations and airports, basically through a kind of a Google Map view, which is fantastic. If I've never been to a mountainous airport like this, I want to see in advance how it's going to look like, how I'm going to join the circuit, what terrain am I going to have to deal with. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's available in the Performance Plus plans as we're talking about now. It really does a good job representing what to expect in the route of flight, how the runway environment is at those airports. And I know I did this a lot when my flying. I just Google mapped or went to the specific airport website and tried to figure out the airport layout and things like that, aside from using the CFS and all the other traditional methods, just to have a visual representation. So looking at weather cams at the airport and things like that. This kind of is a really easy way to do that, right? I haven't been to half these airports that I put in this route, but using 3D airports in ForeFlight, I'm kind of able to familiarize myself without actually having to have been at those airports, right? And for the route of flight. But we'll get to the route of flight a little later on here. Because in the 3D layer, what it's available now is weather layers. And basically, it takes that profile view of the weather forecasts and to another level, right? Now, when you're previewing your route in 3D, you have the option to select weather layers along those route of flight. So can it get more prepared than this? I don't think so, right? We can take a look at all the airports and fast forward here a little bit to when exactly we're going to enter any type of icing or clouds or turbulence along our route. It's depicted in like these floating colored blocks, white in this case for clouds. And you can see in the top left-hand corner there, it's indicating that's a few clouds at this time, at this altitude. And our airplane is flying right through it. So if we don't want to be an IMC, this is probably something to consider, right? An altitude change or something along at that point in our route. It's color scale to depict the severity, and you can use the altitude slider on the right hand side to kind of figure out different altitudes that would work. It's a really fantastic way to preview a route. In addition to just looking at the airports, now we can start integrating weather and really do a good pre-flight of the actual route. I should also mention that 3D view is taken to new heights recently. We've been able to integrate airport markers directly into the 3D view. You can see your route line. You can see a third-person view as well. It's a global thing as well. So you can view, if you want to plan a flight to Hong Kong from Toronto in your Cessna 182, you can do that using 3D view. It's fantastic. At night, you can see runway lighting and as well as 3D obstacles, which is very, very neat. If you just want to take in the views, you can do that as well. If you are planning an IFR flight and you want to put in an approach into your route, you'll be able to see that approach preview in 3D view. So it's a fantastic kind of interactive nav log, ability to display a lot of things in 3D view. Now, as the name suggests, performance is exactly that. Performance profiles. Let's take a look at how Performance Plus subscribers can benefit from profiles, and we'll take a look at a performance profile for a piston engine, because I think that's mostly applicable in this case. So I'm going to go to aircraft, and I'm going to select my aircraft, which is an SR-22 today. And I'm going to select a ForeFlight performance profile. And I do that just by tapping on aircraft type and selecting the right aircraft profile depending on my aircraft. And then you can scroll down to performance profiles. Now, performance profiles are adjustable based on some biases, but in today's case, I'm going to go with the cruise performance of 75% power. You can also choose to create your own basic performance profile if you wish, not using our built-in ones. Now, ForeFlight's built-in performance profiles take information directly from the manufacturer, so it is very accurate information, and you can even add your own safety margins as well. So if you want to, adjust your fuel performance or anything like that, you can do so directly in the performance profile in the aircraft. The performance profiles are, again, located in the aircraft tab in your once you have Performance Plus subscription, you'll see the performance profiles are available to you. Performance profiles will often change based on aircraft and engine, not aircraft, but engine type, or any additional max takeoff weight increases, things like that, additional attachments to the aircraft, anything like that might change the performance profile. And if there is an STC for that type of thing, we are likely to have listed it. And if there isn't, then you can always create your basic profile to adjust for that. Performance Plus subscriptions also take advantage of takeoff and landing distances for pistons now. And I'll demonstrate this in a demonstration, an example flight here. So we were going from, I believe, to Dryden here. And we've made up our flights. We are selecting the takeoff performance there. And let me just go back 1 second here. So you'll see in the departure destination, you have a takeoff and landing button there. If we tap on takeoff, we can actually view the departure information. So at the very top, you'll just get the basic information. So weight, total distance, speeds, and some critical speeds. The departure, runway, and more concrete information is available below that. Basically, it gives you a wealth of information, and I can select if I want my air conditioner on during takeoff for this, and a safety distance factor. This is that safety distance factor I mentioned before. It gives you things like liftoff speeds, climb performance, anything. And if we tap on landing, it gives you a fantastic amount of distances available and what your landing rollout's going to be. So if you are a pilot that is very into making sure his takeoff and landing distances are accurate, or his or her takeoff and landing distances are accurate, by all means, this is a automated tool to do that. And ForeFlight does a fantastic job to provide all information. If you tap on the top right-hand corner in summary, you'll get all that summary for takeoff and landing distances, climb capabilities, performance capabilities based on your aircraft profile, and the current conditions. So it does take the current weather conditions. It does give you a couple scenarios like calm winds, tailwinds, and headwinds, and it displays all that in a really easy to read format. Now, I know this is going kind of quickly here, but we do have an entire guide dedicated to performance, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions specific to your aircraft type at team@foreflight.com, and I'll go through how to contact us a little later on as well. But just wanted to highlight that takeoff and land distances for pistons is available. It's not just jets, and it does a fantastic job to kind of get all that information in a nice, convenient summary. All right, so that kind of concludes the performance plan highlights I wanted to bring to your attention. The next thing I want to highlight is custom content. Custom content is available in all subscription plans, and you know what? It's really just a way to customize how you fly with ForeFlight. There's a wide range of operations. The usability of ForeFlight really expands when you can import your own custom charts, waypoints, map layers, and you can do it via hyperlink or email attachment, airdrop, or drag and drop into iTunes. Really, a lot of ways to do it and a lot of formats, but it's ideal for flight schools, rescue operations, things like aerial firefighting, pipeline control, and a lot more. There's basically four different ways you can take advantage of it. Content packs. Content packs are packages of a lot of information. So things for missions like backcountry flying or training or sightseeing. You can build content packs that have a lot of data types, and then access those content packs directly in the custom content section of ForeFlight. If you want to import specific custom charts, you can bring your own georeference charts right into ForeFlight. It supports MB tiles, which is a kind of an open source file format developed by Mapbox, and that allows for really efficient, compression and distribution of large charts. You can actually create your own MB tiles. The program's called MapTiler, which is free to download, and ForeFlight also supports other formats as well, the GeoPDF and things like that. But it's a great, fantastic way. We'll show you some examples of custom charts as well. The next one is custom map layers. So if you have KML files or KMZ files or GJSONs, GeoJSONs, again, a lot of user map shapes that you can integrate directly into the maps page, and that's where that aeronautical layer becomes important as well, decluttering what you see on the map, right? Finally, user waypoints. I have several listed here, and I mark a lot of user waypoints when I'm flying. But if you have a lot of user waypoints that you want to import in bulk, you can also do that via KML file or a CSV. And then you can add them to your route like any other waypoint, which is really great. So if I'm flying to a cottage or I'm overflying a certain area that I frequent, I can just input that directly into my route instead of having to find it or search a lot long every time. Here's an example of a custom chart. So this is a BC topographic chart that is important to ForeFlight, and you can see in the top left hand corner I've just selected it from my map layer, because once that chart is in the custom charts section of your custom content, it's available to you to select on the maps page. So if I'm doing some geographic work, whether it be surveying or firefighting or anything like that, this is a fantastic tool to have there, and then you can plan your routes around that, right? Here's an example of a really neat custom map layer that I use, and it's just a fun one. These are all the MLB ballparks in North America, and whenever I'm flying close to one, I try to look for the actual ballpark. Still a couple to mark off my list, but it's a really fun way to kind of view some fun content in ForeFlight, and it just highlights how customizable it is, and really the possibilities are endless on what you can display on the maps page, right? The next one here is a really neat one. I want to thank Adrian Tegler, my colleague here in Canada, for helping me out with this one. If you are a flight school and let's say you send over, the flight school has a KMZ file that it sends to its students saying, okay, if you're using ForeFlight, here is a custom map layer that we want you to use. So they use some user waypoints, and it just gets sent over. You can open it directly in ForeFlight, and bam, you have the practice area of that specific flight school. So this is an example of a flight school in Brampton, Ontario, that has a specific routing to and from the actual practice area. So you are on the east side of the highway going northbound, west side of the highway going southbound, and it has a geographic representation of that actual practice area. Now, if I was a flight instructor that had a student that was using ForeFlight, or wanted to show him where the practice area was so he can see it with the VNC underneath, I can think of no better tool than this, right? You can really, the possibilities are endless on how you can customize the colors, the shapes, the sizes of these layers. And this was just built in Google Earth and converted to a KMZ file and imported into ForeFlight. So there you go. All right, let's talk about connectivity. So as you may be aware, ForeFlight connects with multiple panel avionics and remote systems. I'm going to highlight a few here that I think are most beneficial to Canadian pilots, and they're mainly in the Garmin kind of brand and suite of things. But you can go to our website and visit connectivity and see exactly what connectivity features you can get directly in ForeFlight through your panel avionics and mobile avionics. Depends where you're flying. If you are flying in the United States a lot as a Canadian pilot, I would definitely recommend some kind of ADS-B device that will integrate with ForeFlight, as it'll give you a wide range of capabilities like weather, traffic, ADS-B, and directly on the maps page. So it's fantastic. But that being said, let's talk a little bit about the Garmin Connects, which is available through the flight stream. So ForeFlight Mobile and Garmin Avionics are connect wirelessly, which is great because it makes everything from pre-flight planning to in-flight a little easier and faster since they communicate together. How it does this is ForeFlight connects actually to the installed avionics via the flight stream, which is, there's multiple versions of the flight stream. It's a 110, 210, or 510. The flight stream is essentially Garmin's Bluetooth gateway, where it's able to interact with other mobile devices. And what it mainly does is enable convenient two-way flight plan transfer. So from your panel to ForeFlight and from ForeFlight to your panel. Now, for any cross-border flying, it will display subscription-free ADS-B weather traffic and backup attitude. Actually, the backup attitude will be available regardless, and the GPS data in ForeFlight will be available regardless. So all that will be coming directly from your panel. If you do have Garmin avionics in your aircraft, I highly recommend going to our website to see if it's compatible with ForeFlight. But generally, if you have a flight stream, it will be, and you'll be able to connect your navigator to ForeFlight itself. That being said, the Garmin GTX series transponders are also integrated into ForeFlight's ecosystem. Garmin's GTX 345 or 3345 are all-in-one transponders that meet the ADS-B out requirements of the FAA, and they have an added benefit of being ForeFlight compatible. So depending on the model you choose, it will be wirelessly delivered via Bluetooth to ForeFlight, and you'll get again ADS-B traffic, GPS data, attitude information directly on your mobile device as well. Now, I know as Canadian pilots, we so often hear the term ADS-B, free ADS-B weather, free ADS-B traffic, which unfortunately we just don't get the benefit of here in Canada. But there is a weather option in ForeFlight for you to get in-flight weather while flying. So let's talk about it. It is via the Garmin GDL 51 or 52. If you have one of these receivers, you will be able to receive Sirius XM weather, satellite weather. Now, the first step is to decide between the GDL 51 or 52. So the 51 includes the satellite receiver, and the 52 combines both the ADS-B receiver and XM receiver. So if you fly transborder flying, the 52 will probably be more what you're looking for. They vary in price, the 51 being cheaper just because it only has that single receiver, but something to keep in mind. Now, in addition to having the actual receiver, you will need to purchase a Sirius XM weather subscription that is specifically tailored for ForeFlight. So if you visit the Sirius XM website, you will be able to see Sirius XM for ForeFlight and be able to subscribe a monthly subscription through their service. It's called Sirius XM Pilot for ForeFlight. And what it will give you is Canadian US weather radar, storm cells, cloud to cloud, lightning, cloud tops, eco tops. You've got Mentar's TAFs, winds aloft, surface visibility forecasts, and a lot of features that the ADS-B system doesn't necessarily provide. So yeah, ADS-B is free, but it doesn't give you a very complete picture, and it's also dependent on line of sight, where satellite weather would not be, right? Here is the service coverage area of the Sirius XM weather. It basically covers most of Canada, except if you're flying up in the extreme north, but it does have very good coverage. And here is the monthly subscription plan that you would have to subscribe to for the receiver itself. So it is a monthly fee in addition to the actual receiver itself, but it is a complete weather solution for Canadian pilots that have a ForeFlight subscription as well. So highly recommended if you're looking for that in-flight weather. This is something fantastic to have, especially in the winter and in the summer months with thunderstorm season. With that, the webinar is concluded. I know there's a lot of information. It's a lot to get through. These webinars are always hard to develop because of how much information you want to pack in and without going too deep into each each feature. But I want to thank you very much for your time today. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them now. Before we get there, I just wanted to highlight where you can find some documentation. If you want to download the Pilot's Guide to ForeFlight Mobile, which I highly recommend you taking a look at, there's a lot of content in there. You can do so by visiting foreflight.com/guide or directly on your mobile device, Documents, Drives, and ForeFlight. All our releases, all information about our releases is also available on our website, and as well as our webinars. So if you've missed something in today's webinar, I know I had to go through things quickly at some points. If you want to rewatch them, you can do so foreflight.com/webinars, and Jay will be uploading that as soon as he can after today's webinar. And of course, if you have any questions, if you have any burning questions, team@foreflight.com, we will get back to you as soon as we can with the appropriate information. Again, thank you very much for your time today, and we'll go to the Q&As now.
All right. So I'm joined here today with my colleague Adrian Tegler, and we just wanted to go over some questions that came up during the webinar and highlight it for everyone else. So Adrian, I don't know if you want to start off with the first one there.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me here. Let's jump into the first question. So we got a question just in terms of the subscription pricing and if that was in Canadian dollars. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And we've got on the slide there some more information on the plans. But the basic plus subscription for Canada is $13 Canadian per month. So that's billed annually at 156 Canadian. Pro Plus 26 Canadian per month, billed annually at $312. Performance Plus is $39 Canadian per month, billed annually at $468. So you can find those prices on our website on the buy page, and there's a little drop down to select the currency that you want, and you can select Canadian dollars, and it'll show that there for you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the clarification there. We recently broke down the subscriptions kind of on a monthly basis, so you can see what you're paying monthly to, which is, I think, really, nice and transparent to see. The other thing I wanted to mention here, or the other question that came up, was about TFRs. So the question was, how are TFRs being reported in Canada? Well, TFRs are not specifically a Canadian thing, right? That's more of how the US highlights their restricted airspace and activates it. Here, everything is activated by NOTAM, or there's a NOTAM for restricted area, and that will appear in the geographic or graphical NOTAM layer in ForeFlight. So if we'll just demonstrate here, if you select NOTAMs, there's one near Kelowna right now, and you can kind of take a look. There's aerial fire suppression going on, and those are the defined areas. So if anything like an air show comes up or firefighting activities that would otherwise be a TFR in the States, that's how it's going to show up in Canada. So just to highlight something there. How do I turn on the quick menu in the aeronautical layer? So I may have just brushed through that part, but if you access the quick settings icon there on the top left-hand corner of the map screen, and you scroll down to what's it here? Quick filters. If you scroll down to quick filters, then you're able to turn on and off that quick that left-hand sidebar, which then you can access, putting on layers like airspace or waypoints and things like that. So it's just in that menu there, in that settings menu. Is the radar beta layer, the new one 15.9, in North America wide or just in big cities? It's North America wide. In fact, it's actually in all parts of the world where ForeFlight currently has radar coverage. So it's a global layer, just like the radar layer is, as far as coverage, but not all areas of the world currently have radar coverage that we can provide. So yeah, you'll see it all in North America, and if you toggle that on, you'll see it there. One of the webinar listeners mentioned or just mentioned that, hey, don't forget that the back of the VTAs are also available in the Nav Canada section of the Documents tab, which is a very good point. I just want to direct you there. So if you go under Documents, Drives, Nav Canada, and scroll all the way down to VTA folder, that's where you can actually find the back of the VTA charts. And for those of you who don't know, that's where all the comm frequencies are, right? Not for navigation, but those were, if it's a wide area like Toronto, there's different CFAs for different sections and sectors. So you can just make sure you're on the right CFA frequency there. So that's a great point. Adrian, I don't know if you want to take the next one.
Yeah, got a couple more here to go through. So first of all, I just want to mention, in terms of ADS-B in Canada, we sometimes mention this in the webinars, although there's not an official network of ADS-B ground-based towers in Canada like there is in the US, established by the government and the FAA. There are some privately installed ADS-B receivers or I guess transmitters in Canada, and there's a group called the Canadian In-Flight Information Broadcasting Association. So the website is cifib.ca. So Charlie India Foxtrot India Bravo.ca. And it's just a cool project that I've always kind of thought was a great initiative to bring some ADS-B into Canada, and that's I think in the GTA, the Greater Toronto area mostly, but you can check on their website for more info. So you may be able to get some of that ADS-B reception depending on where you fly. And just wanted to mention that. The other question, another one we got, is how do you turn on the weather fronts and clouds from the forecast? So Dominik showed there at the start the maps page with the fronts and animated that so you can see like the highs and low pressure systems, and we've got that there on the screen. So you can turn that on via the maps and overlay selection menu, which is at the top left corner of the screen, and then you want to select the surface analysis right there, and that will show that layer, and that's available in Pro Plus subscriptions and above. So Pro Plus and Performance Plus will have that layer available to you, and you can show it. It covers Canada, and then you can animate it with the little animation slider button at the bottom of the screen. All right, back to you, Dominik.
Yep, that's a great point. The last two I have here. So can multiple selections of units be used for distance rings? So I don't know if you remember back to when we engaged the distance rings around our aircraft. I demonstrated how you can toggle them between minutes or kilometers or miles. So unfortunately, it's one at a time. At this time, you can only see either nautical miles or time in minutes or kilometers. You can't kind of have multiple entries there, but that's a great suggestion and something we'll pass along. And then the other one that just came into our feed here is about logbook. Can the logbook feature comply with Canadian currency requirements? So as a Canadian pilot, I can tell you I use logbook, ForeFlight logbook just fine. As far as recording your time, as far as keeping track of it and all the summaries, it does a fantastic job. Does it consider Canadian currencies at this time? No, it doesn't. It is something we are working on, and it's actually a bigger project than just Canada to have multiple different agency currencies in there. But it is on the roadmap, so I just wanted to say that it's a great question. At this time, it doesn't, but that shouldn't stop you from using the logbook in general. Just keep in mind that the currencies will be off a little bit, so you'll have to take that into consideration. But yeah, it's definitely on the roadmap. And I think that's all the questions we had. If there are things that we haven't brought up or that you'd like to ask, please send an email at team@foreflight.com. We will get back to you. If you haven't heard back, then just try to send another one if for some reason you haven't heard back in a day or two, and our team will be more than happy to respond to that. I don't want to take up too much of your time today. I just want to again thank Adrian and everyone involved in the webinar today on our end, and thank you for listening. and I hope everyone flies safe and has a great day.